Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Village of Ruidoso special meeting. It's 9 a.m., October 25th, actually a couple of minutes. If you would join me in a moment of silence, and then we'll have the pledge. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
All right, thank you, everybody. I apologize for a little tardiness. Nice jacket, dude.
Yeah.
Too bad you're going to have two of them, maybe.
Oh, good.
Roll call, please, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. Mayor Crawford,
Here.
Councilor Eby,
Here.
Councilor Luderman,
Here.
Councilor Salas,
Here.
Councilor Hooker,
Here.
and Councilor Jackson.
Here.
Thank you, everyone. Item number 1 is discussion and possible action on adoption of Resolution 2022-47, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2023 budget, quarter ending September 30th, 2023, for certain funds and application to the Local Government Division, LGD, of the New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration, DFA, for the approval thereof. Good morning, Judy.
Good morning, Mayor, councilors.
Good morning.
This is our first budget adjustment for the new fiscal year, and as you will see, this one is usually the biggest because of all the rollovers from fiscal year 22 into 23. We had a little bit of a unique situation this year due to product shortages and different things like that. We had more POs that were open that weren't closed for vehicles, equipment, and different things like that. So this budget adjustment ended up being $59,124,814 but most of that is for capital projects and some of those outstanding equipment purchases and vehicle purchases. So we'll take the same approach as we always do. This budget adjustment is required by DFA by October 31st. So if you have any other questions, I'll get into the discussion. Okay, so we will spend most of our time, and you've seen this before, it's the schedule of budget adjustments. It's the Department of Finance and Administration, Local Government Division, Financial Management Bureau. And it's the one that takes each individual fund by category, revenues, transfers in, expenditures, transfers out, and it lets you know the amount that I'm increasing or decreasing the budgets by, and it actually gives the purpose for what those adjustments were for. At any time, if you have any questions or need a little bit more explanation, feel free to just jump in. But if we're ready to go, we'll start off with the general fund, which is the main operating account for the village. Our revenues increased due to fiscal year 22 rollovers for our disaster grants for the fire and the floods at a total of $350,000, and the donations that rolled over. Those are new donations in 23 for the police and seniors. The police received a $15,000 donation this year, and the seniors have received so far $3,130 in donations. Transfers in, $977,199 was for the transfer from the intergovernmental grant for the second half of the American Rescue Plan Act. If you remember, we were granted about $1.9 million, and they divided it between 2 fiscal years. So last year we did receive one half, and this year, now in October, we received the second half. So now we have all our monies. Later on in the expenditure sections, you'll see where I'm rebudgeting the first half. So
if I may,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely.
So on those disaster grants for fire and flood, $350,000, when that comes in, does it have to go back or because we've already spent money, can it go over here and then be used for whatever?
So it's actually like replenishing expenditures that we've already had. So usually if that happens where I'm crossing fiscal years, I usually hold that money in reserve and we use it for snow removal and for different things that come up during the year. Now, these amounts are still just estimates because they're finalizing the application. So we won't really know what the true amount of the grant is, but that money would be held in reserves,
Thank you.
just as a little insurance policy in case we have another disaster, then we have some money to start off with, so. We'll move on to expenditures. So they increased by 3.2 million. A lot of them are for rollovers. The first one was illegal, a couple legal invoices at 11,942. Lease query software at 18,000. Safety equipment at 53,000. And then the donations that the departments didn't use in 22, they rolled over to 23. So the police started out at 17,784. Fire started out at 5,734. The seniors at 10,376. Parks at 22,887. We had a rollover of some McBride Fire budgets at 217,795. The snow removal, these were from Ebony and Goliath a couple years back. We still have 135,176. The laser shot software at 39,604. A dispatch server at 12,136, and then some wildland fire gear at 31,695. Parks master plans at 50,526. The wayfinding signage project at $30,005. Midtown streetlights at 49,663.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Horton equipment at 10,000. The Horton floor scrubber at 14,580. Abatement, we're rolling over 100,000 for that program, and then utilities, 305,837. At the end of last year, any monies that we had budget savings for utilities, I usually roll over because as we were seeing the fuel prices fluctuate during the year, it was impacting our utilities. So I didn't want to come into the situation in the new fiscal year that if prices increased and our utilities are over our budget amounts, then we're trying to scrap for some monies. So what I did is just rolled over our budget savings from the previous year and earmarked them for utilities. Later on in the year, if we don't need all those funds, then we can reallocate it to another project or a different expense that might come up. Okay. We had some engineering, a rollover at 63,697, and then of course here's the first half of the American Rescue Plan at 977,190, and then the start of the new fiscal year expenditures were the second half of the American Rescue Plan Act at 977,191, and then we did set aside some money for the flood on August 22 at 100,000. And then again, of course, the PD and the seniors received their donations in the current year. Transfers out increased. Fiscal year 22 rollovers was a transfer to the Intergovernmental Grant Fund for the VOR match to finish up Cream Meadows at 1,157 for the closeout. Our match for the Links Construction Trail grant at 72,800. And then the new transfers were to the special recreation for the VOR match on the outdoor recreation. So Rodney received a $233,000 grant from, I believe, tourism, and it had a match of 100,000. So he was a little bit short. As the WIBIT season ends, at the end, once we deduct an operating budget for the next year, the monies are split between Watershed and Parks and Rec. He was a little short on his side, so the general fund was going to make that match whole. So now we have all the money for the match.
How much short?
23,000.
303.
303. And then we transferred from some funds for the easements on the sewer line at 300,000, And then we are loaning, that fund some money, for the Close Road project closeout at $600,000. We have submitted all our expenditures, to New Mexico DHSEM, and we're waiting for a meeting to close out, Close Road Bridge. I know that bridge has been closed out for some time. So we just needed a little bit of money to keep that fund rolling until we can close out, and hopefully, knock on wood, that it doesn't take that long to get our reimbursement for that project, so. And then we transferred again for another loan.
Mayor, Judy, can you, just on that note, can you go a little, give an explanation of our conversation with Deputy or Secretary Romero yesterday?
Yes, Tim had been in contact with her, and, we have been, as you know, having bi-weekly meetings with FEMA and New Mexico Department of Homeland Security. But when the fire started up north, our bi-weekly meetings weren't always attended by the state. So for the past few months, we haven't been getting any help or assistance on scheduling a closeout meeting with DHSEM, and wondering if we're gonna get some of our matches on some of the PWs. So I believe Mr. Dodge contacted Debbie, and she has called us back, and she told us yesterday she wanted.
Debbie Romero.
Debbie Romero.
Secretary.
And she wanted to know exactly what we were outstanding as far as the sewer line. We are, the state's match is at 6 million, and they've advanced us 3 million, so they owe us another 3. We received all the federal portion of the sewer line, so we were telling her that we're waiting to see, when they could release some of the funds, because we know that that sewer line is probably gonna go over the amount that were set at the Sandy recovery amount, and that's gonna be 100% VOR. So she did say that they were looking into releasing 1.5 million of that 3 million, but that the rest probably wouldn't be released until the end of the project. So I believe she's still working on whether or not we can get our full amount. She did also ask us on our bridges. She was gonna look in to see if maybe we could get the advance, because you know, on all the bridges, the original PWs were at a low amount, and when we
Reversioned.
we reversion to the higher amount, I submitted an invoice to them requesting 50% of the federal and the state share of the new project worksheet amounts, and we still have yet to determine whether they're gonna advance us that or not. So she did tell us that she was gonna be working on those two issues for us. About a half an hour later or so, the new CFO, who is working between DFA and Homeland Security, called me and wanted to know exactly who we had been talking to. And I did mention the bi-weekly meetings and all our emails, and that we had submitted these invoices over 18 months ago. And she told me that she would get working on it ASAP, and that she would get me an answer on the monies within 2 to 3 days.
Oh my gosh.
Mayor, and then the good thing about the whole thing is all the money that we've been asking for, going to the session, chasing our tail around the circle. Debbie Romero assured us that the monies are in their funds. They just haven't reconciled.
In their budgeting? In their
Yes.
budget?
And they do have the money set aside, they being Homeland Security. But they hadn't, her department's taken over the financial operations because of their lack of reconciling and being able to manage their finances. So the money is there, and she assured us that she will help us get paid on what's owed to us.
Awesome.
It's great.
I know exactly.
Well, when it's coming from DFA, I have a lot more confidence in what Debbie's saying, and working through it, so. Before we couldn't even find out who the finance officer was, and get an answer from their finance officer. So I believe it's good news. I just wanted to bring that up, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
So getting back to the transfers, the last transfer was to the airport for a hangar purchase at $279,900. The general fund is actually loaning the money, and as the airport receives income off that hangar, they'll pay back that money. Any other questions on the general fund? Then we'll move to the supplemental gross receipts tax fund number 202. The fiscal year 22 rollovers are the Water Trust Board grant for Eagle Creek 2 at 501,750. The River Stewardship Grant rollover of 158,475, and then the Water Trust Board grant for Eagle Creek 3, 1.6 million. Those are the revenues, and then, of course, you'll see corresponding expenditures for the grants through the expenditure part. So in fiscal 22, we're rolling over a Two Rivers project at 66,523, the Horton Drainage at 738,379, Emergency Watershed Protection 439,486, River Stewardship at 215,730, Stormwater Drainage 67,926, Wingfield Park Drainage at 17,000, Water Conservation Plan at 94,165, Water Master Plan at 387,239, the water right leases rollover at 242,650, Eagle Creek 2, 717,709, cleaning out grindstone drains at 188,864, the Upper Canyon Diversion Design at 166,
186.
650, ooh, gosh, I can't even see that. 186,858. Permitting at 285,815, Wingfield Drainage at 60,000, the Leak Detection Project at 8648, and then the Upper Canyon Surface Diversion at 600,000. Eagle Creek Phase 3 at 2.3 million, and a PRV replacement at $88,041.
Water costs a lot of money.
What are we permitting? I see Eric's on board.
It's a USR, I'm not sure, is he on here?
Yeah, Mayor Crawford, members of the council. This is for the USR project that this money's just earmarked for that until we resolve our issues regarding the return flow issues with the Office of the State Engineer.
Okay.
And so rather than moving forward with our monitor, so to move forward with the permitting process, we would have to spend about $1 million, I estimate now, to do the monitoring project. So we didn't want to move forward unless we know it's going to be advantageous for the water system.
Okay, thank you.
What PRV replacement is that again? Do we know?
Mayor Crawford, so that is for us to start so we're working with Sauter Miller and Associates to do kind of a comprehensive PRV replacement project.
Okay.
Randy's been working on them, one at a time and doing a lot of stuff in-house, and it's a little bit taxing on our staff. So we're going to combine the most critical PRVs into one project, and we're going to get those designed by Sauter Miller and do a construction project.
Okay. Thank you. Judy?
Any other, okay. We're going to move on to the surface, which is the capital equipment replacement fund. The fiscal year 22 rollovers balances are fire has 229,215. They also put any monies that they earn off the rental of their equipment when we're outsourcing to different fires to different states. They actually accumulate those monies in here to save up for either fire trucks or equipping fire trucks that they're buying. The seniors at 1,093, police at 369,926. Water production at 1,333, water distribution at 152, Parks and Rec at 101,662, the wastewater treatment plant at 5,278, admin at 3,876, the convention center 200, airport at $5,424, streets at 534,643, P&Z at 7,523, solid waste at 30,701, IT at 64,026, purchasing at 36, courts at 152, and the library at 7,116. The reason we have some pretty big balances rolling over is because of some of them, like the police, are for the vehicles that people were trying to find. The streets are for the sweepers. So, those were, long lead times, so we're rolling them over. So hopefully within this year, we'll actually get, those vehicles and pieces of equipment that we've had on order for some time. The next fund is the fire fund. We're rolling over 546,404 because that's for the fire truck. In LEPF, the PD had a balance on last year's grant of $8,367, so we're just rolling over that balance. LEPF lets us roll it over as long as we spend it in the next current year, and I believe the funds are gonna be used on training, on some of the lieutenants and sergeants, so, we'll be expending that here shortly. The next fund would be lodgers tax. We're rolling over the Wingfield Park Master Plan at $10,845, the signage project at $58,315, the audit at $4,000, Rhinestone Lake Porch Roof at $31,355, and Eagle Creek Sports Complex paving at $21,235, the mobile stage, what is it, two something? I have my wrong amount. Do you have the?
It says 150.
But it was 202
It's
or
the
200.
It's the two, the light and sound with the mobile stage was all
Yeah.
one project.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
The 158 plus the sound. It was all because we didn't get sound on this one, and the price of the stage went up considerably from when we got it.
And then the ice rink at $113,860, the Alto stairs at $6,133, and the Alto stream habitat at $30,000, and then a rollover of the balance for Zia therapy at $312. The current year budgets adjustments were for the fiscal year 2023 Zia therapy match for their DOT grant at $43,500. On special events, now that's the fund that we created off lodgers tax to house the concerts and all the festivals and events that we're having. So their rollover for special events was $175,331, and concerts at $163,236. In special recreation, which is the WIBIT fund, their revenues increased by that outdoor recreation grant at $202,340, and then again you'll see the transfer to make our match whole at $23,303. And then the expenditures increased by $371,647. It was mainly to the outdoor recreation grant at $302,340. And then the rollover of the watershed project at $79,307. And then we just had to reduce the budget on salaries by $10,000 in order to make the cash balance out. And any questions on that one? If not, we'll move over to intergovernmental grants. Revenues that are rolling over are Cree Meadows, federal grant at $106,525, the Lynx Trail at $433,057, and Moon Mountain at $205,056. And then we had two legislative appropriations for the senior tiling project at $73,077, and then of course the second half of the American Rescue Act funds at $977,191. The transfers in on intergovernmental grants was for the closeout of Cree Meadows at $1,157, and then of course our match on the Lynx Trail construction grant at $72,800. The overall expenses increased by $818,463, which included a rollover for Cree Meadows at $71,608 to close that one out. The Lynx at $6,855, and that's the planning portion. And then we also rolled over the construction of the trail at $500,000, and Moon Mountain's construction at $240,000. And then again, you'll see the transfer out of this fund back into the general fund for the second half of the ARPA money. On the DWI grant, at the end of fiscal year 22, we weren't able to expend $58,130 out of that fund, so now in 23, we're gonna send the money back to the state. However, when Bill goes to the conference, he will actually ask that money in another grant, so hopefully we'll get the money back, and we will. So we'll have to spend that $58,000 in 23. So we didn't use it and we send it back, but then we get it in a new grant in the new fiscal year, so. On the forestry grant fund, the fiscal year 22 rollovers was a legislative appropriation for thinning at 126,738, and then we have a fiscal year 23 legislative appropriation on thinning of 336,000. The expenditures from the rollover were contract services on their thinning projects at 462,738 and telephone at 3,400. On FEMA, the revenues increased by 9.3 million. The rollover from 22 was for the federal bridges at 3,792,452, the state sewer at 3,011,393, the state bridge portion at 975,8880, legislative appropriation for our sewer line at 1.5 million, and the legislative appropriation for bridges at 42,199. The transfers in were a rollover of the sewer line match at 2.3 million, and that's coming from treatment plant fund, and the transfer for the easements at 300,000, and then I guess, again, the loan from the general fund until we can close out Close Road. The rollover for expenditures, the sewer lines rolling over at 17,842,295, and the bridges at 726,468. Any questions on those ones? No? Okay, the next one is on GEO bonds. We have a little bit of a fiscal 22 rollover. We had two legislative appropriations for Alto treatment plant, and we had drawn down all the money on the legislative appropriations first, and the project was still going on. So on each of the legislative appropriations, they withheld about 1,500 from each appropriation until we finish out the project. Now that we finish out the project and we get all the sign-offs from NMED, then they'll remit this last 3,000 back to us. Also, as you know, last year when we were working on CDBG, a lot of our pay requests, particularly number 3 through 6, were sitting at DFA until we could finish some of our certified payrolls. And so we had already expended to the contractor $575,075 that was advanced from the GEO bonds to the CDBG fund in order for the project to keep on rolling. And we did that as a loan because we knew that the monies would eventually get to us. We finally got the monies in October, so this is just paying back the loans of monies that had transferred. So you'll not only see the adjustment in the GEO bonds, but you'll also see it in CDBG. So the GEO bonds was paid back their $575,000, and then the expenditures within the GEO bonds on a rollover was the Alto Plant 3 at 238,376 and Paradise Canyon at 477,229. And during the first part of fiscal year 23, the GEO bond had to advance 38,807 for the final pay app. So all that money that was owed has been since paid back. On the New Mexico Finance Authority Capital Improvement Fund, we are rolling over the expenditures for the magistrate court at $5,030,458. And then, of course, on CDBG, the fiscal year rollover was $614,605 for Town and Country, and the transfer in from GEO is at $38,807. And then, of course, the expenditures was for the CDBG Town and Country, and then, of course, you'll see the transfer out paying back the GEO bonds. On the General Capital Improvement Fund, we're rolling over on revenues, a legislative appropriation at $3.5 million for public safety, and $696,695 for the Wingfield House. The expenditures included a fiscal year 22 rollovers at Pine Cliff Engineering at $20,500, Horton at $5,104,554, the Village Hall Drainage and File Room at $140,109, Wingfield House at $762,991, Center Street $13,130, NMDOT grant on the Gavilan paving at $3,585,187, and the VOR annex demo at $50,966, the Eagle Creek water line $35,000, Paradise and Hall. This is subsequent to the mediation, we have a balance left over of $61,480 off the $100,000 that we received a couple years back, and Main Street at $500,000. And then some of the new fiscal year budget increases were to Wingfield House at $200,000, and the Cutler project on the Suttereth Circle at $197,600. Any questions? No? We'll move on to enterprise funds. The first one is the Rio Doso Joint Utilities, which is water and sewer. In order to balance the fund, we had increased our water revenues by $100,000, and then the expenses based on fiscal year 22 rollover were some open contracts at $6,041, equipment and vehicles at $229,920, master plan and rate analysis at $290,225, furniture for the new RJU building at $50,000, the building itself at $836,373, sewer line extensions $120,239, the Region 9 sewer line at $63,762, water production projects at $96,478, river restoration projects at $328,863, and Camelot Lift Station at $383,239. The next fund would be the airport. Revenues increased because of a rollover for the run rate grant at $199,306, the taxiway striping grant at $18,000, the maintenance grant at $20,000, and then fuel sales at $140,000. You'll see the transfer in for the hangar purchase from the general fund at $279,900, and then their expenses were the rollover of the run rate grant project $528,937. The taxiway striping grant at $20,000, the maintenance grant at $14,587, their donations at $2,794, and then some contract services at $8,766, and then the new budget adjustment would be for the 2 hangar purchases at $404,900. The next fund is our new housing trust fund. The rollover was a legislative appropriation at $980,000, a federal grant at $1 million, mortgage finance authority loan at $400,000, and a P&M donation at $20,000. With the receipt of this P&M donation, we have received all of our donations.
Again, where's the 200?
The 200 was received in the prior fiscal year.
Oh, that's right, for the bankers.
For the bankers, so it just is a part of our beginning cash balance, so.
Mayor and councilors, I got in the final amount yesterday for phase 3, which includes the wall and the sites 1 through 6. It came in right about 340. We're still within budget, and it's still affordable, so we're going to be moving forward with that final phase.
Okay, great.
And then on the expense side, the $3.3 million for affordable housing. The next fund, there's a transfer out of the housing trust fund at $14,400. As you know, we were renting the house on Hull, and we had originally put the rental revenue in the trust. So we have since created a rental fund that will house all our rental properties. So this is just transferring those funds into the new rental property fund. So that number is actually 508, and you'll see the transfer coming in. And then the expenditures that we budgeted in that fund were for the property manager and for any repairs and maintenance for any of our properties.
And we don't see that on this report, but we will. The 508, you said?
Yeah, it's there. It's 508. It starts off with the transfer in. It's right after Fund 507.
Okay.
Okay.
Mayor, Council, Judy, one of the recommendations I have is in your finance report, if we start creating an area where we can report, how that enterprise fund is operating that way, since it's a new enterprise, that the council's made aware of it on a monthly basis. You can see, money going into that and money coming out.
Okie doke. And so our next fund is the treatment plant. Their rollover to expenses was for their screen project at $2 million, their master plan and rate analysis at $505,345, and then a legal PO at $52,122, and then of course the transfer out for the match on the sewer line. The solid waste expenses increased $566,813, and it was due to the master plan and rate analysis rollover at $179,721, the rental invoice at $955, And then a dumpster truck and trailer at 202,574, building improvements at 83,563, and vehicle parts at 100,000. So overall, again, all the expenditures increased by 59,124,814. So if you have any other questions?
Anyone? Well, I'm really proud of you guys for keeping up.
Wow, no, good for you. I guess I would have a question, it's just clerical or whatever. Why is it that the village clerk is attesting to this and not you?
I actually, this one, because the mayor is gonna sign it, so she has to attest his signature.
Oh, okay.
When I actually submit it within DFA's LGBMS system, I actually have to certify it, and then at that point, my signature comes out on that one.
LGBMS.
Local Government Budget Management System.
Okay, good. And this was gone through by the Legislative Finance Committee. What day was that?
Friday.
That was last Friday, yes.
Mayor, Counselor, when it comes to attesting, the clerk is the official records custodian. So she's attesting the official signature of the mayor.
Gotcha.
You know, so she's basically for all legal documents, the individual that attests, or if it, in Ron's case, when he was a clerk, it was Ron, but you know, your clerk is one that attests the mayor's signature.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Anything from, any other questions of Judy? Okay, if we can get a motion.
Mr. Mayor, move adoption of Resolution 2022-47, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2023 budget, quarter ending September 30th, 2023, for certain funds and applications to the Local Government Division, LGD, of the New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration, DFA, for the approval thereof.
Second.
Okay, final discussion. Roll call, please, ma'am.
Counselor Jackson,
Aye.
Counselor Eby,
Aye.
Counselor Letterman,
Aye.
Counselor Salas,
Aye.
Counselor Hooker.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Judy.
And just one more thing, in your monthly report binders, I've also included the GRT report and the cannabis report, just
See that?
for you.
I
It was
saw.
such a-
Smoking,
It was
y'all
such a big amount. I
Smoking
wanted
lots of
you to see
cannabis
it.
around this joint, or eating it.
Mayor, can we work to a quick overview of that?
Yeah, don't forget, I've got another meeting at 10, so,
Okay,
but get after it, because we got to get to Mr. Muirhead. His clock's ticking.
okay, so we'll keep it short. The actual distribution is, here we go. For the month of October, which was actually, again, 2 months ahead, which would be August, we received 1.7 million, which is the highest October that we've received in the last 10 years. So that was a good distribution. And overall, even though we're only up, when we compare the same number of fiscal months for 23 to 22, we're up 3.84%. But if you look at it, we've already received about 45% of our budget. And another thing to just keep in mind is that if you look at fiscal year 2020 at the bottom where it has the historical average and the growth rate, we had grew 14.79% over the prior fiscal year. And then, of course, COVID hit us and we went down. But if you look at 22, we were back up another 14%. And now we will probably be up probably at least 5 to 10%, I would imagine, if we keep going at the same rate that we're going. So as you know, gross receipts is one of our main revenue streams to a municipality. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And then also on the cannabis, we're slowly growing each month.
We're budding, as it were.
Yeah, there you go. So we're doing good. So I just want to bring that to your attention since it was one of our biggest distributions. So.
Mayor, if I can add on to that, lodger's tax is due today on the 25th, and then to date, we've already collected 211,000. Last year, we were at 221, and we still have out our, a couple of our big accounts like VRBO. So we're gonna go, we're gonna surpass that, last year's, lodger's tax, which means the following month of gross receipts is also gonna be up. When you talked, Judy, you talked in, I'm not sure what report that you provided, but on the report that I had in my book, it only showed the September receipts, the 1.7,
Did I not put one on?
but in, you didn't put the October in the report.
October is
I put it
1.7880.
on your side right there. It's just for this paper.
Well, I gave them.
She updated it last Friday, but yeah, it was,
So you ended up including that in the report?
Yeah, in their,
Yes,
in
1.78.
in their binder,
Right. Okay.
because you had referenced that on Friday, so.
So, it just, you see those two trends at 1.7 and the month prior was 1.6.
Yeah.
So it's up. The two areas that were impacted was April and May. That's where you see the first month of reporting for this fiscal year was down, but that was when we had that decline as a result of the fire. Thank you.
And the cannabis it's just going into the general fund.
we've been asked if we're earmarking those funds for anything, and we haven't earmarked them for anything. And people are talking about, additional training for our police force, our EMTs, things like that, are we? So maybe that's a discussion we'll have at a later time.
And Mayor, in this, there's still several grants that we have out that are still owed to us that aren't recognized in this finance report.
And you can see in the breakdown, I don't know if it's in here, of the different departments, from, hospitality industry, construction, all of those things, gas tax. You can break it down, you can see how construction is really working well with us. We talked about this several years ago, a year ago, we talked about, shoring up our slow times with construction, and it
Right.
seems to be paying off very well. Anything else? Thanks, Judy.
Thank you.
Now, if we can have Mr. Muirhead, we'll go on to item number 2. But before we do, people are talking about how we've been splitting up Parks and Rec, and I just want you to take a look. These guys, we haven't split them up at all. They're just right there.
And they're not fighting.
No, I mean, it's all good.
Each one of them is wearing one shoe.
Is that it? The three-legged race right there, man. So, item number 2 is to request to schedule a public hearing on November 8th, 2022, and for ordinance 2022-08, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of the Village of Ruidoso, New Mexico General Obligation GO Bonds, Series 2022, in the aggregate principal amount of $1.5 million for the purpose to enlarge, improve, and/or extend a production and distribution components of the village's water system, providing that the Series 2022 bonds will be payable from ad valorem taxes levied on all taxable property within the village. Chris, yes, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Nice to see you all. This is a continuation of the program that's been going on for almost a decade now of general obligation bond authorization. This most recent March, the voters in the municipality again approved up to $3 million of GO bonds for water system improvements. This is the first issuance of that authority historically, so it's every 2 years you have that election. And each of these, over the last decade, you've issued $1.5 million each year for water system projects. This puts it on the agenda for 2 weeks from now for consideration for the 2022 issue, which again will be at the $1.5 million. The important thing, again, this is an ad valorem property tax base. That's why it goes to the voters. It doesn't impact any of your other gross receipts tax or other revenues. It is very secure. Hilltop Securities will find buyers. The markets have gone up, of course, but this is a very stable, very solid, high credit pledge. So we're hopeful, again, to get good rates on this and continue the project. We can go through the ordinance in 2 weeks, but it is consistent with what we've done in the past. And this is just the continuation. Every year about this time we do this particular issuance. Happy to answer any questions about it. It would close, if you all want to move forward on the 8th, it would close in the second week of December, and the monies would be available at that point.
Judy, have we spent down all the funds on that, on the last 1.5?
We have a little bit of a balance. As you recall, the biggest project that we had was Treatment Plant 3. So now that it's ending up, we can start taking on some new projects. So I'll have at the next council meeting, I'll have a balance for you of what we have left in that fund.
On that, generally, the IRS, where this comes in, since it's tax exempt debt, they want to see that you have a reasonable expectation at the time of issuance, which you have had. You have, obviously, as you know, multiple projects always ongoing to update and improve your water system. Then you have 3 years from the date of issuance, that is the target to expend those funds. And you have been, should there be some delay in that, you just need to document what that is and why it hasn't been expended. But you've been diligent about doing it, and you do have that 3-year window to spend it.
Anybody else? When will the debt be retired on the last issuance?
They've been at a 10-year
10 years.
maturities. So the 2013s would be maturing this year.
Okay, so the first one we took out, we're retiring it.
Retiring it. And so, just to remind you, this is set up through Hilltop and initially, the debt service levy that is on your property tax bills does not increase.
Right.
As new debt comes on, old debt goes off. It is structured so that the one levy as set will continue to produce the revenues to pay this, so that property owners, that's why you see the support for it, besides the need for the projects, is that they understand that they're already been paying this tax and it won't increase it.
Right.
But they did just get their new property tax bill from our good friend, Mr. Hill.
Yep.
So, and he went up drastically on everybody. So,
If I understand right, let's just say at our next election, the voters do fail, doesn't pass, the property tax doesn't go down
No, it would
It'll stay.
you would still be paying it until these various issues.
until all of them. That could be up to 10 years.
Well, yes, so this
Okay.
year would be two, and then next year, you are approved for this year and next year. And so the debt levy would be on there until, if they did not reapprove it or you decide not to move forward any further, 2033.
Okay.
When that is paid off.
Okay.
okay, any other questions?
I'll make a motion that we schedule the public hearing on November 8th, 2020 for ordinance 2022-08, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of the Village of Ruidoso, New Mexico General Obligation Go Bonds, Series 2022, in the aggregate principal amount of $1,500,000 for the purpose to enlarge, improve, and/or extend the production and distribution components of the village's water system, providing that the Series 2022 bonds will be payable from ad valorem taxes levied on all taxable property within the village.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please, Jenny.
Counselor Hooker?
Yes.
Counselor Letterman?
Yes.
Counselor Eby?
Aye.
Counselor Salas?
Aye.
And Counselor Jackson?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Judy.
thanks a lot.
Now we'll move into closed session, so if I can get a motion to move into closed session, then we'll retire back to the,
Mayor, is that a specific item? I don't have any,
it's on the mission, it's on the,
we just put it on there in case.
okay, we don't have anything? Okay. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add to this? Okay, well, that completes the day's agenda. This meeting is adjourned.
All right. Boom. Thank you.
Surprise, surprise.
Really?
I've been doing it 30 years, I still have the same.
Good to see you, sir. Yep.
Gentleman's son.